Good morning, everybody. We're very excited for you to join us today, this morning. It's November 17th, 2020, and this is our November Paths to Project Cybermentoring session. Today, we have our partners at DHR Health, and we're going to talk about their pharmacy. And joining us is Nadia Alvarez. Nadia is a pharmacy tech. Hi, Nadia. How are you doing?
Hi, how are y'all? I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Great. I want to let everyone know that, first of all, we are recording this session, and we're going to do things a little differently than we've done in the past. The chat feature has been disabled for now, and Nadia is going to take a break every once in a while. And we'll open up the chat at that time. And if you have questions, you can ask them then. If you haven't already put your full name, make sure you have your full name there. And we're going to get started. Once again, we are recording the session, and we'll offer times for you to ask questions from time to time. So let me welcome and introduce Nadia Alvarez. Take it away, Nadia.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I'm really excited to be here. It's my very first time. So I'm a little new, but we'll get through it together. So let me start. So then here, share screen. Okay. You can see me still. Okay. You guys could see the screen, right?
Not yet.
Not yet.
It takes a minute sometimes.
Okay.
Let me make sure. Yes, I made you a co-host. There it goes. Now it's coming. Just give it a minute.
That's no problem.
Now we can see it. Thank you.
Alrighty, so my name is Nadia Alvarez, and I am a registered pharmacy technician here at DHR Health in Edinburgh, Texas. I know on the screen it says medication reconciliation technician, and we'll get more into that because I'm pretty sure you're wondering what that is. So we'll get into that further down on the slides. So my path to becoming a registered pharmacy technician is not the usual route that I guess everyone would take. Usually, you know, I know nowadays out of high school, they have the pharmacy technician program where right out of high school, you're already a pharmacy technician, or there's a STC that has, you know, the 2-year course, or vocational college that has those programs for you. So for me, I actually did not go to school to become a registered pharmacy technician. I actually decided to I actually didn't know what I wanted to do, to be honest with you. I actually was approached by one of my professors in my chemistry class, and she said, "You're really good at chemistry. Have you thought about going into pharmacy?" And of course, no, I had not. So I decided to get a job at an independent pharmacy, which independent meaning locally owned, like a mom and pop. Some of the big ones down here in the Valley, Science Pharmacy, Lee's Pharmacy, Richard's Pharmacy, versus a chain pharmacy, which is like, you know, your Walgreens, Walmart. And so when I did, I became a clerk there at the pharmacy. So those are the basics of answering phones, taking in prescriptions, really getting to know phone etiquette and how to speak to patients. So that was kind of the building blocks. I was about, let's see, I was a technician for, a clerk for 6 months, and then I transitioned into a pharmacy trainee. So I was a little bit more hands-on with that. So I was assisting the pharmacy technicians, pulling the meds for them, receiving the order, kind of doing more on the back end of that, more versus in the front with the patients. And then finally, after maybe 3 months of being a pharmacy trainee, I got a book. Someone, I think, gave me a book. I studied for about 3 months, and then I took my test, and I actually passed, and I became a registered pharmacy technician. So everything, all the tools that I have learned to this day has been from a real life hands-on experience, and I think I will always tie it back into having experience. So that's just a little quick summary of that, but we'll go into depth of what I did from there. Let's see. me go back a little. So then when I was in retail, I decided I wanted to kind of expand, be more well-rounded in pharmacy. So I actually applied to DHR pharmacy and started to become a technician there. And so it was totally different from retail pharmacy. And here at DHR, we have 3 pharmacies. We have a main pharmacy, which is the central hub for all of DHR Health. We have a women's pharmacy, which is a little bit smaller, and then we actually have a small pharmacy and behavioral hospital, which is basically a room with a pharmacist and a technician, and that's it. So in the main pharmacy, there's a lot of moving parts, and you can see on the pictures here, I put a few things that are kind of tying all together. So one of the main things here at DHR is answering phones. When you come into the pharmacy, your phones are nonstop. So our etiquette is to answer the phones within 2 rings, 3 is the max. Answer the phones, and of course, when you answer, it's you state your name and the department. So for instance, if I answer the phone, it'd be, thank you for calling pharmacy. This is Nadia, how can I help you? Usually on the phones, it's the nurses who are looking for medications that they're needing for their patients, or physicians that need a recommendation on dosing. In that case, we would transfer to our pharmacist, since that's out of our scope of work. And then here on these pictures here, you can see it looks like a little Pyxis. It's a station here with a tower. It's lit up right here. This is called our Pyxis station. So here's where we refill all the medications. So the nurses use this to pull their meds out for their patients. So one of our tasks is to refill this type of station, and we have one in every unit in the hospital. So we have over 30, 40 Pyxises that we have to fill, and it's not just one time, it's on a daily basis. It's constantly telling us, hey, we need to refill this. We have, everything's linked, computerized and digital, so it tells us all the time, like, hey, this is running low. We get reports, so we're constantly refilling that. We also do a lot of compounding here. If you see in the middle picture, we do all the compounding in hospitals, so we are trained to do that. We set up everything. Of course, pharmacist checks it, but we are the ones who compound everything. We send everything out, especially for our pediatric patients that are on a liquid form of medication that can't swallow tablets or pills or whatever the reason may be. We have that. And then over here, if you see these carts right here, these are called crash carts. We usually have more of the red ones here, but we do have a few blue ones still left on the floor. These are our crash carts. So I was telling Elizabeth, I was actually assisting in a code blue. So pharmacy technicians do assist in code blues here at DHR Health. We refill those crash carts. They have an IV tray with all the IVs that are needed, and then they have a medication tray that has all the medications that are needed when they open that crash cart on a code blue or a rapid response. So in this one right here, the colorful one is a pediatric crash cart, so it kind of distinguishes adult from pediatric. And then right here, you can see this med carousel. This is called a med carousel. So in our main pharmacy at DHR Health, we have 4 of these. So imagine 4 big, huge carousels. In women's, they only have 1. And then in behavioral, we don't have any. They get all their medications from the main pharmacy. So here's where we're stocking all the medications from our daily order. We get a daily order. We're refilling everything, and this is where we pull all our meds to refill our Pyxis machines that I mentioned. If a nurse is asking for a medication, we get labels for individual patients. That's where we pull all the medications. So it's a constant moving parts, but our team, we work together to have our designated duties and then lend a helping hand to everybody. And then down here is a technician in the IV lab. So we do IVs here, and we actually, I believe we still have IV certification. So if you're interested in being an IV certified technician, we offer a class that lets you be IV certified. And I think nationally, before it was just in the state of Texas, and now I believe our program is nationally licensed. So that's something that's, if you guys are ever interested, we do offer that in-house. So I'm going to stop here to take a quick pause to see if there's any questions so far about the main pharmacy aspect of this. So how do I see this?
Good. I've gone ahead and opened up the chat. So if anyone has any questions, the chat is available for you to put in a question for Nadia. about her experience. Is it hard to keep, I think she meant up with the calls. This is from Irasema.
So at first, it's a little daunting to answer a phone call because you're not used to it, you're not familiar with it. But once you get the hang of it, and of course, you're always, when you do train, you always have a mentor with you. So they'll kind of coach you like how to do this or what to look for. But it kind of becomes like second nature when you start answering calls and get the routine of it. You know that you need to follow through when you answer a phone call, making sure that that medication that's being requested or whatever the phone call is followed through to the end. So no, there isn't, because we have about 50 plus technicians that work with us. So the phones are constantly ringing, so everyone, grabs the phone, and sometimes the pharmacist, if they're able, they will help us with the phone calls.
That's cool. How many hours do you need to be a pharmacy tech?
That is a good question. Since I didn't go to school to become a registered pharmacy technician, I really didn't have any hours, to be honest with you. Like I said, everything was hands-on experience. I know that now it's transitioned a little bit more, but I can get back to you exactly how many hours are required for becoming a pharmacy technician.
So they asked, was that a chemistry class that you took in high school? Do you remember taking chemistry?
Yes. So I am actually currently right now finishing my degree in biology. I have my last 2 semesters, and then I'm actually applying to pharmacy school within this next upcoming year. So I remember taking chemistry in high school, and then when I met my professor approached me, it was when I was in college taking my basics. So I was doing general chemistry, which is 4 hours, which is 3 hours lecture and 1 lab, and then also Gen Chem 2 was when I was approached again to maybe consider it, and then as well as organic chemistry, which they're all 4 hours in for college.
This is a really good question. Do you ever forget how to read a prescription? And if you do, what do you do?
So with prescriptions, I know that sometimes the doctor's handwriting is kind of like chicken scratch. So we do have, if I, do get stumped, especially in a retail setting, when I first started out, I was kind of, oh my gosh, what is this? That is where we have, our lead technicians. And if they don't know the answer, we have our pharmacist in charge, which with the schooling that they have, they're able to, make out the prescription, or if they have questions, they'll actually call the physician and ask them, like, what is it that you're prescribing?
What type of medication is usually located in the crash carts?
So for the crash cart, so right now we're in a big transition with the pandemic. So we're everything's changing right now. So when it comes to the crash cart medications, so on the IV fluids, it's just basically, from the top of my head, there's like some saline, like normal saline that just is to flush, the lines for the nurses. There's magnesium that the nurses use. And then they actually have a tray of all the of medications, and like I said, that's transitioning out, but that is whatever the physician thinks they need, we have it there. Like anything that's an emergent medication, it's there for them to use. Instead of running to the Pyxis and to the med room, we have everything that they need for an emergency situation there for them, and they're able to use that.
I'm going to jump a question. So can you tell us what an IV, what does that mean, IV, when you say that?
So I'm not a nurse, but for an IV, so an IV is going to go into, a nurse's more line of practice, but they find a vein in anywhere that they feel like they can. They draw a needle, and the IV is actually the medication that goes through your vein. Instead of taking medications orally, it goes actually through your veins.
Okay. So IV is intravenous.
Yes.
Okay. And going back to that other question, do you think you have enough education to read the prescription without struggling, or do you feel like you need to go to school more for that?
To be quite honest with you, I've been a pharmacy technician for about 8 years. So I've learned, and like I said, my experience was learning, and I did have errors sometimes, but that's where my pharmacist would catch that. But in learning with the experience that I have, I'm actually pretty good at reading prescriptions in a retail setting. So in a hospital setting, which I am right now, it's more, everything's entered through an EMR, which is a electronic medical record. So the physician enters that and it populates. And so it's not really written anymore. It's all electronic. So it's a little bit more clear.
Okay. That's great. Can you tell us a little bit about the interview process at DHR? What was that like?
Absolutely. So the interview process, well, I went into the HR, and so they do kind of like a first run for the actual pharmacy to see if I'm a candidate to move forward. So I had an interview with our human resource department, and from there they asked basic questions. I gave them my resume, and we just talked, and it was just an interview. They asked where I worked before, you know, my goals, what do I see my future here at DHR? Is it long term or short term, or, you know, things like that. And so after I had that interview, then I moved on to having an interview with the pharmacy supervisors there. So they're the ones that actually make the ultimate decision whether I was a good candidate for, you know, the DHR team. So from there, we did a little bit more, you know, kind of the same questions as, you know, what your goal is, or you know, what can you contribute to our team, or do you think I have any, you know, strengths or weaknesses? So it was kind of like that. And yeah, so that's how the interview process was.
Cool. What are some things that you learned in the process of becoming a resident pharmacy tech?
Like a registered pharmacy technician?
Yes.
Okay. So my main thing now is I learned a lot with patient care. So here at DHR, our patients come first, patient safety. When I went from retail, I learned how to speak to patients, and I learned etiquette that way. And from here in the Rio Grande Valley, our community is really tight knit. So for me, I always think of like family member or my aunt or my grandmother's friend, or, you know, you're talking to someone that you probably know in your community. So you get that type of relationship with your patient, and they're not just a refill number coming from retail. They're actually, you come in and you have quick conversations about, you know, how their day is, or did they try that new recipe? So you're conversing in that way. And so patient care is number one for me. And so moving into hospital setting, it was a little bit different starting off, because the most interaction I had with patients is over the phone with, you know, the nurses. They were my, you know, the middleman. So I was conversing more with nurses, but even then you're learning about the nurses because you talk to them on a daily basis. So I think that's really important. So patient safety, patient care is like number one for me, as well as the etiquette to talking to different people, especially the nurses, which are the ones who are taking care of the patient. The pharmacists that you're working with, they are also our leaders and mentors. So the way you converse with them as well. And then you're working with a lot of different people. And so building a team and having that team communication with each other, I think that builds success in becoming a pharmacy technician.
You know, Nadia, that's really good experience. So how you have retail and you have hospital.
Yes.
So how do you feel those experiences are going to help you when you transition to another job?
I do actually, on the next slide, we could start. I actually was in the main pharmacy for 4 years. And then after that, I actually got promoted to actually become a medication reconciliation technician, which you saw on the title of the PowerPoint. And so with that, it was a lot more experience. So this is the kind of the second job that I'm in right now. And I could go more into detail with that. But my ultimate goal is to become a pharmacist. So I think all these experiences that I have with starting as a clerk, as a trainee, as a pharmacy technician, now as a med reconciliation technician, and now I'm actually overseeing our whole team on the floor, which I'll get more into detail with that. I think those are all really good building blocks into going into pharmacy school and really showing that, you know what, I have a foundation, and I think it's just going to help me in the long run. So anything you can absorb and learn and take in, I think those are great tools.
Can you tell us about your typical day? Like how many hours do you work? Can you talk about shifts and rotations and all that?
Sure. Let me actually move on to the next slide, and then I could go into that a little bit more in detail. So we could, so I could show you what my day, my shoes is like now, and then I could explain that a little bit further. So let me move on to the next slide if that's okay with you guys.
Great, let's do that.
Okay. So like I had mentioned before, I was working in the main pharmacy for 4 years. My director / VP of pharmacy services decided that I was a good fit to actually work as a medication reconciliation technician. And for me, I was like, what is that? You know, I have no idea what that is. I don't even know if I like that, because I really liked being, you know, a lead in the pharmacy. So he said, I think that you're a really good fit for this. I was like, what does that mean? So a medication reconciliation technician is basically, I'm out on the floor with actual nurses and physicians on the floor with them, and I document home medications. So I'm actually going to patients' rooms and talking to the patient and asking them about their medical history, what medications they're currently taking, and entering all that in into the EMR again, which is in the electronic medical records. And so I get an accurate list for the physician. I'm always in communication with the nurses, especially the primary nurse, to let them know, hey, I already finished documenting your patient in so-and-so room. And so if the physician asks them, it's done. So what happens now is the physician comes in and looks over my work and decides what medications they're taking at home to continue while they're here inpatient. So here you see the pictures. Right here with it looks like a little mobile computer station. This is called a WOW. It's a workstation on wheels. This is basically like my office, my mobile office. I take that throughout the whole hospital, and I see patients and go into their rooms with that, and that's where I enter everything through there. And then this picture right here I posted is with the patient and the person by the screen, and then a nurse. So a lot of times, like again, the nurse is going to be your best friend on the floor because they know the patient, right? So usually when I'm documenting, if I have trouble understanding something or I just need help from the nurse, they're always more than willing to go in and help me. And so that's why I put that picture there, because I'm there with the nurses, or sometimes the physician comes in and I'm documenting and they're overhearing everything that we're talking about. So that, and then on the bottom right here, I put different types of hospital staff. So on the floor, it was a transition because in the pharmacy, I was just talking to the nurses on the phone and just dealing with inside the pharmacy. Now I was pushed out into the floor with physicians, nurses, the lab. We have resident doctors here. Let's see, the kitchen, unit clerks, the CNAs, which are the nurses' assistants. So everyone, you're talking to all these different people. And so now having to have that etiquette as well, talking to other people. And so when you're in scrubs, people assume you're a nurse. Doesn't matter what color it is. Here at DHR, we're color coded from, like, pharmacy is black, for instance. Nurses are teal. But to a physician, they're just going to come right in and ask, you know, like, I need the nurse for this patient. And so you can't just say, well, I don't know who that is, you know. So we would, you know, I have to learn how to be like, you know what, doctor, let me get that nurse for you, or I'll communicate it to the unit clerk, or if I didn't know any answers, I would find someone who did. And so a typical day for me is that we have reports that we do run that will let me know what patients I need to see first that haven't had their meds documented for the physician. So that's my priority. I work Monday through Friday, 8-hour shifts. So I usually do 7 to 3:30 is good peak hours for us. And I do have a team of 6. So I oversee 6 technicians. So we're all in different areas, but we all communicate together. So that's kind of a scope of our day to day.
That's great. This is another really good question.
Okay.
What would happen if the pharmacist was not around and a physician needed assistance with medicine or a medicine dose?
So if let's say I'm on the floor and a pharmacist, this has had happen, a physician has come to me thinking I'm a pharmacist actually and asking me all these questions on dosing. What I would do is I would, of course, tell them, I can help you out. I am not a pharmacist. I'm a pharmacy technician. It's out of my scope, but let me get you a pharmacist who is available. And if my first call isn't, if they don't answer, what I can tell the physician is, you know what, they're not answering at the moment. Do you have a good callback number that I could get, so I could get that question answered for you right away?
These are really good questions. What kind of person do you think this job is good for?
I think, to be honest with you, being someone who had no idea what, where I wanted to go career-wise, I think if you if you want to help people, I think that was like my first thing. I love helping people, and I'm a people person. I think that you don't have to be a people person. I know that there's fantastic pharmacy technicians that are not people persons. I'm sorry. They're a little bit shy, but they're so good. They're so reserved, but I think if you have the right mindset of patient care comes first and patient safety, and that you want to make a difference in someone's life, even if it's just a hello or how are you, or just acknowledging them, I think that would be a great start for this pharmacy technician role.
Did you have any doubts when you became a pharmacy tech?
I did. I didn't know if I could do it. I had a little bit of doubt just because, like I said, I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I decided, like I said, I took a job as a clerk at while I was going to school at the pharmacy that I first started at. And then I realized that this is where I wanted to be, and I wanted to learn more, and I wanted to be more knowledgeable and more educated, and wanted to succeed. So yeah, definitely did have my doubts at the beginning.
What's the hardest thing you've had to face?
I would have to say that um, the hardest thing I would have to face is, I didn't go to school to be a pharmacy technician. Like I said, everything was experience. So there was a lot of people that went to school that, knew all these things. And I was, I knew these things, but not to the extent that they did, but I learned. So sometimes just having confidence that I could do this, because I got licensed without going to school. And so with that education, sometimes I thought maybe I should, maybe I should have gone to school, or maybe I should have taken a different path. But that was the hardest thing I had to face, is having confidence in myself that I could really do this job.
Did you panic?
I'm pretty good at panicking low key, so I didn't show that I was panicking. I mean, when you work in a hospital or any pharmacy setting, it's always going to be pretty hectic, because it's a very fast pace, especially in a hospital. It's so fast paced. Things are constantly changing. So I had to learn how to take a breath and just kind of keep my composure, because there's been times where other people have panicked. So I've learned how to stay calm in stressful situations, and how to kind of logically think instead of doing everything because you're panicking. Just kind of look at the situation and deal with it head on in an appropriate way.
I can see that. What do you think is the most important quality your job requires?
I think the quality, and this is going to go back to what I've said before, is really patient care. I think we're all here for patients and patient care, even though it's a different avenue than nursing or like an LVN or a CNA. We're all here for patient care, and I think if you keep patient care at the top of your the top of your mind when you're going into jobs like this or becoming a pharmacy technician, I think that's going to be your number one way and resource to overcome a lot of things.
What are some helpful tips you advise when working at DHR?
I have a slide on that. Let me keep going, if you don't mind, to the next one. Let me see. Here, I had posted this and I thought this was interesting. Just these are the three things that kind of stuck to me when, wanting to show you kind of what gets me through a day. So, of course, the mobile workstation I have showed you before. This is called a Spectra, and this is actually like a mobile phone that anyone can reach you at. So, with this phone, I get calls from physicians, nurses, pharmacists, my director. Anybody can reach me on this phone. So the mobile station and the phone are kind of like my two lifelines. So this is what gets me through a day. And then also I put this book down here just because someone gave me, a pharmacy technician book to study, and that's why I'm here today, because I got that book, and it just always reminds me that I'm here. I have experience and I made it. So I put that there because maybe you're not going to go to school, but I'm here to tell you that you can do this if you don't go to school and you do study. I studied for about a few months, and I was able to pass the exam, but I put that there just in case, someone's, kind of going down the same avenue I am. And then going on to helpful tips. For me, it's like I said, it's going to all, piggyback to getting experience, whether it's volunteering or shadowing or getting a job as a clerk at a pharmacy. I think that that's just so important to know if this is what you really want to do. So getting a job, volunteering, but also kind of seeing like how the techs are observe their daily duties. How do they answer the phones? How do they communicate to their team, the pharmacists, the patients? Learn your brand name to generics if this is really what you want to do, because you're going to be getting this prescription and they're going to be prescribing it in a brand name, and then generic is what we're going to be able to give them. So things like that. And then also ask questions. I think that, from experience having students or volunteer students that come in, they are very shy and they don't want to ask questions. And I always ask them, do you have any questions for me? Just because I know it could be intimidating seeing us, working in so fast-paced environment. So don't think that asking questions is ever a bother. I think I'd rather have a million questions than have no questions from any of the students I have, whether it's a volunteer or a pharmacy student that's actually with me and they're shadowing me, or just a tech in training. I always ask questions. And then also hands-on experience is really fantastic. So if I do train somebody, I always let them, I'll go over it once or twice, and then I'll have them kind of, try it for themselves. And of course, I'm always going to be there. So nothing's ever going to be, left alone. No one's going to be left alone. We're always going to be there for you. But I think experience is like the number one thing that I could say as helpful tips.
How would you handle a difficult customer or a patient? I can tell you, I went to pick up a prescription yesterday and the person in front of me was very upset because they had to wait and the insurance didn't approve it, and he had a bunch of problems. So how do you handle those customers or patients?
So I could tell you an experience from being in a retail setting and in a hospital setting. So being in a retail setting, again, it's going to tie back to patient care. So yes, I can understand their frustration when, whether it be maybe someone who just got out of a doctor's appointment, it's been a doctor's appointment all day, or a mom that's, trying to pick up her kids really quickly from soccer practice or, after school activities, or, a dad that's trying to get home for dinner on time, right? So of course it's frustrating when your prescription gets, you drop off a prescription and then you're coming in whatever the time they told you to come in and it's not ready. So there has been some instances where patients are really upset. Like, I came, an hour early. You said it was going to be 20 minutes and it's been an hour and it's not even ready. And so you kind of have to see where they're coming from. And just, acknowledge their frustration and let them know, what, you're absolutely right. Let me see what I can do for you. And so let them know that you are making an effort to get them out of there and get them home or get them to wherever they need to be. Get them to where they need to be. And so that's how I would deal with customer or patients that came in a retail setting. I would acknowledge them and let them know, I understand your frustration. Let me see what I could do for you. And then and most of the time we were able to get them out and on their way. When it comes to a hospital setting, you have to understand these patients are here and they're not feeling well, they're sick, right? So the last thing you want is to be asked a lot of questions. You just want to rest. So I can understand their frustration, but you have to keep in mind, like, the patient is number one. Where are they coming from? And so in a hospital setting, when a doctor says you're going to get discharged, they think it's going to be in 5 minutes. When in reality, there's a lot of paperwork that the nurses need to do. And so they're just anxious to get out of there and get home and to rest. So there was one time a patient the doctor said, you're going to go home. And the nurse was like, let me do the paperwork. It might be another hour. So they're already packing their bags, changing. And the nurse is like, no, we have another hour. And then long and behold, I come in just to make sure all the medications are returned to the patient. And they just wouldn't have it. They were upset that they were here, that people were coming in. And, so you kind of just have to understand where they're coming from and not take it personal, because it's not towards you. It's just the situation that they're in.
Yeah. Does the job get easier to do?
I think the job, it becomes, like I said, like secondhand, but you can't get too comfortable, because if you're getting too comfortable, then that's when errors happen. So there's always, I always keep that also in the back of my mind. It does become second nature, and it does become in a way easier, but if it becomes too easy and too comfortable, then that's when errors start to happen, and that's what you don't want.
How long is the residency for a pharmacy tech?
That is a good question. When you mean residency, is that like a tech in training, or
I think so.
what type of residency are we talking about?
How long do you go through a training period to be a
Okay. So in the main pharmacy, since there's a lot of different shifts, the training period for a pharmacy tech is 3 months, because you're going to go through each shift, and that takes I think each shift you train maybe a week or two. So they kind of have it to where it's worked out. So about 3 to 4 months is the training that you would need to be on your own as a pharmacy tech here at DHR.
If you could go back to the beginning of your career and do something differently, such as maybe starting earlier or something different, what would you do?
Yes, so it's a good question. If I wasn't doing this, I think something that I would really have liked to do is maybe be at like a fine arts major, going into art history. I really have a thing for art. So somewhere along the lines of that, I would probably do if I wasn't doing this.
This is a really good question, and I've always wondered this too, so I'm glad Aliana asked this. So when I go to the hospital, I see all the different carts, and they have different colors. Do those colors mean something, and how do you organize all of the drugs that they use at the hospital?
That's a good question. So here, like I said, the hospital is fast-paced, so everything's changing all the time, right? So for instance, right now we're actually in a transition. So when you go into a hospital, like you said, there's these carts, and they are color-coded. So like I mentioned before, our crash carts are red for adults, and those colorful carts that you see are for pediatrics. And so when it comes to organizing them, we have our team of our pharmacists and our supervisors that kind of come up with a plan how to organize these medications to where it's accessible for the nurses and the physicians if they're needed, right? So, and then we also use, of course, the pharmacist guidance. So that's how we organize everything. So everything's labeled. All the crash carts have a number. So let's say, and there's someone responsible to check those crash carts, right? To say, crash cart, adult crash cart 1, it's expiring in, I don't know, a month. We need to keep an eye on that one. But we know where all the crash carts are because of the labeling, and we have a system and reports that tells us where they're located. And then the crash carts are also labeled as well. So when we're actually refilling these crash carts, we actually have a log. So we'll log off. I refilled crash cart number 2. This is the first med to expire. this is the lock number for the crash cart, and then the pharmacist is going to double check my work before we steal that crash cart and put it in and take it out to the floor. So everything is has a system and is organized because we have a really good team of pharmacists and our supervisors that take over and do that for us, and we follow their lead when they're ready to present things like that to us.
I wondered if this ever happened too, and then what do you do? Do you ever run out of medication? And if you do, what do you do?
So we have not run out. Well, most of the time we don't run out of medication. Right now, there's a lot of shortages. And so that's where our pharmacists come in. So a lot of shortages is happening because of this pandemic. And so what's happening is the pharmacy team, especially the pharmacists, are the ones who kind of say, okay, if this med's not available, then a similar one is this X, Y, and Z. So then they'll formulate something into our, electronic medical record to let the nurses and the physicians know, hey, this med's not available, it's on back order, but you could use these other three. Or if that one's not available, you can use this other one. So there's always people working on that just in case something does run out, which is happening right now, the shortages, we have that resource.
So probably we can get back to your presentation, but the two main questions that are coming up, and probably you're going to answer them, and if not, think about that. First of all, what inspired you to get into the medical field? And now that you're there, what career options are you considering?
So to answer the first question, what inspired me was actually my general chemistry professor in college, who kind of was the one who kind of planted that seed. I did not want to take chemistry. It was probably my last basics that I had to take in college. And she's the one who kind of said, hey, you're doing really well. Have you considered going into pharmacy or engineering or something along the lines, or even nursing, I think she mentioned. And I knew I didn't want to do engineering. I knew for me personally, I didn't want to do nursing, but pharmacy I've never considered. So with that, that's why I said, you know what, let me try to get a job at a pharmacy. And there was one down the street, and it so happened that they were hiring for a clerk, and you don't need a license to be a clerk. And so that's where it started. And then as far as where I want to go with my career, so I am finishing my degree in biology. I have a few more semesters to go, but I'm actually going to be applying to pharmacy school in 2021. And hopefully I get in there and go into pharmacy school and become a pharmacist.
That's great. I've shut down the chat for a little while, so if you want to go through your presentation, and then we'll open it back up for questions in a bit.
Sure. So on this is, we went over like the helpful tips. So I think the one thing I had mentioned, and I keep going back to, is experience. I think that's just so important. And I know a textbook is fantastic, but I think it takes you only so far. I think experience it really puts you in these real life situations that will help you use your, critically think, and how to, maybe not the first time, but then you'll know the second time how to handle difficult situations. And then you'll learn, like I said, the building blocks of talking, speaking to people, the etiquette of answering phones, all those little things really are helpful tips. And then my last slide, actually, this is a picture of some of our pharmacy team. That's not all of them. And so these are the pharmacy technicians and pharmacists. So I don't know if you can see right here in the back, in the blue, that is our director / a vice president of pharmacy services here at DHR. So he's the one who picked me to be promoted to go on the floor and be a medication reconciliation technician. We have some of our clinical pharmacists right here, and then our pharmacy team here. This is one of our supervisors right here in the front, and then one right here in the back. Can they see me? Okay, and then here's me right here in the orange. And then this is also one of my team members on our team. She's one of our ER technicians that does the same thing I do, but just in the ER department. So I just wanted to show you that we're a team, and yeah, this is just a few of us, there's a lot more of us, but it's just something I like to show because this is our team and we help each other out, and to make this pharmacy team successful. So that was the end of my presentation. And the last one that I had was the Q&A. So all the questions that you guys have, please feel free to ask me. I'm happy to answer any questions. And if not, I'll get back to you with an answer.
Well, I've opened the chat back up. So if there's something else that you have questions about, you can put it in the chat. But one thing someone did notice was the book you had put on one of your slides and wanted to know if you found it hard to learn everything that was in that book.
For me, what I did is I broke it down into sections. And some sections were easier that I can remember than others. And if I did have a question, I used my resources. What I mean by that is I was working in a pharmacy. So I asked the pharmacy technicians, hey, this is an example I have. I don't understand it. Can you show me a similar example, or can you walk me through it? Or my pharmacist, right? I said, I'm not sure about this. Like, can you explain this to me? And so I used that and I had a lot of questions. So I would earmark all my questions, and every example we had, we wrote it down, and I actually just stuffed it in my book, and I kept it there because if I had trouble with, certain things, I'm pretty sure it's not something you get, it's just instant. I would go back and kind of see it, and then we do like similar examples, and then see if I understood it even more.
So what schools did you go to, and do you have any recommendation for colleges?
So I actually started at South Texas College because I like I said, I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I said, you know what, let me just do the basics. And of course, at the time, my parents were paying for college for me. And so I had to get good grades, and so for them to keep paying. So I started there, and I actually found that I really liked STC. I took a lot of evening courses because I would work during the day, and then I would take evening courses at night. And there was a lot of course, there's smaller courses, which I really liked. So when I mean smaller courses, I mean smaller class sizes. Like instead of having, like at UTRGV, there's, I don't know, about like 100 or 200 in an auditorium, right? In this class setting, you have less than 30 students, sometimes even less than 15. But you guys become tight-knit because you're asking the professor and they're answering back to you because it's just a smaller class size. So I feel like I learned a lot more because I had so many questions and I would be able to answer them. And I wasn't the only one with the similar questions. Everybody else had kind of the exact same questions. So we weren't afraid to ask questions. Versus in an auditorium at UTRGV, I'm, in a class size of 200 and 100 students. To raise your hand and the eyes are staring at you, it's a little bit daunting, and to kind of have to yell across the auditorium. So I went to STC, and then I'm finishing off my bachelor's at UTRGV.
Are the classes challenging?
Now that I'm doing my upper level courses for my undergrad, they are becoming a little bit more challenging, but not anything that someone couldn't handle if they do their time management right.
Since the pandemic, has that affected your position and your office in general? Has it made you more tired? Has it made your job more difficult?
It hasn't made us more tired. I know it might seem a little bit more, not so much stressful, but just more important because we have to be extra careful now with the medications that do go out to the floor. And of course, we here at the hospital, we do encounter patients that are positive for COVID. So that's even more important that we're making sure that the medications are being sent out safely, and that when we do receive medications back, if any, we make sure that we go through a sanitizing process. So I don't think it's more stressful or tired. It's just more important that we need to be in I guess tip-top shape when we're dealing with this, because if it was fast-paced before, it's even faster paced now because everything's just changing and patients are coming in and out even more. So I believe more important would be the right word.
Have you taken your PCAT?
I had taken it once before, and for that I studied basically a good summer, but unfortunately I didn't apply with enough time for my PCAT score to be valid.
How do you organize the medications, and do you know the side effects for all the medications?
Um, so I do not know all the side effects to the medications. I believe that would be more scope of a pharmacist who would know more of all the side effects, and also a physician and a nurse that would probably know a lot more than a pharmacy technician. There's the basics that we probably would know. And then as far as organizing medications, if you're meaning in like in our med carousel, we have big cubicles that have barcodes for each medication that we do. So they're put into their designated spot, and so that's how we organize all the medication. We have also where I guess the more commonly used drugs we have in a certain area, and the I guess the slow movers they call it, the ones that aren't commonly used in another area. So that's how we organize that.
So this is an interesting way that the student has asked this question, but I'd like to hear your response to it. And I'll read it as it says. It says, is being what you are a step towards becoming a normal doctor?
It could be. There's some pharmacy techs that I know that are now doctors. I guess I'm thinking if you're saying regular doctor of medicine, so MDs. I do know some that have transitioned from a pharmacy tech and use their knowledge as a I guess like a stepping stone to becoming an MD. And then if you're talking about a doctor of pharmacy, absolutely, I think this is like the right role to a big step for that, because I know they like to see, when they look at applicants, if they have any type of pharmacy experience or if they volunteered or shadowed. So having that, I think that is something definitely that points you in the right direction.
Sorry, I'm muting because I have construction going on here. So
no, it's okay.
Would you recommend working where you are as a first job, or do you have another idea of what a good first job would be, and what is the most challenging thing about the job you have?
So I believe that if you're, I know DHR is known to hire pharmacy technicians being their first job. So I know that they're really big on teaching and educating and kind of showing them that there's different avenues of pharmacy. One being that we're associated with the UTRGV health system. So, and the U of H and A&M pharmacy schools. So they're really big on, hey, like come over here, we'll teach you and we'll show you different avenues if you're interested in pursuing a further career in pharmacy. I think that it's doable to have this as your first job. Don't let it overwhelm you, because I feel like it can be for someone who this is their very first job, but I feel like you definitely can do this as your first job. And if this isn't something you want to kind of jump into first, I would say a retail pharmacy is a great starting point as far as being a pharmacy technician, because then you'll learn a different side of pharmacy that once, if you want to transition into a hospital setting, you'll have those tools and resources to take you along with you when you go into hospital.
Thank you. Part of this question is from a student, but part of it's from me too.
Okay.
They're asking, is your job stressful? And I want to know, because I know that every job has its stresses. I want to know, what do you personally do in your life to handle the stress of your job?
I wouldn't say they're stressful moments. It's very fast paced. So if that's something that stresses you out, fast paced, different things moving, different parts, then it can be stressful. Again, there's ways that you can manage your stress in that way while you're working. But outside of that, what I like to do is I run. I love to run to kind of, manage stress. And then I also work out at a gym that I really enjoy going to. That's really helped me with work and stressors if I have any. But yeah, there's moments where it can be stressful, but you kind of have to reel yourself back in and again, know that the patients are relying on you to, not just the patients, but the physicians and the nurses and your teammates are relying on you to do your job at the best of your ability. So you kind of have to realize that when you're in stressful situations and kind of think about your situation and navigate out of the stressful parts.
I don't think I've asked this. Is there anything you wish you had known before going into the medical field?
That's a really good question as well. I've always, I think this is another thing that I keep saying is just the experience I have had. I started somewhere where I had no experience, and I feel like maybe the only thing that I would want to know is that's a really good question. Let's see.
You can thank Lauren for that.
I'm sorry?
You can thank Lauren for that.
I know. Thank you, Lauren, for that one. I probably want to know more of the different sides of pharmacy, maybe now thinking about it, because I know there's the retail side and there's the hospital side, but now being more into it, there's different types of pharmacy outlets. Like I didn't know there was research pharmacy. There's what is it called? Like nuclear pharmacy. There's like different avenues, and I had no idea when I started. I just thought it was retail and hospital. But now seeing it, being in the mix of it, there's totally different avenues. There's education for pharmacy. So there's a lot of different avenues that I didn't know when I first started that maybe I wish I would have known then.
Is there a lot of math?
When it comes to a retail setting, there is a lot of math because you're calculating all, the prescriptions that the doctor is sending in. And then here in the hospital side, there is math, but it's not as much as retail. There is a good amount of math, but not as much as every patient you're seeing is math in retail, and versus here, it's usually all already electronically inputted for us.
And the last question is, what is the biggest challenge in your job?
I think the biggest challenge in my job is there's a lot of people that want you to do things right away, right now, especially a lot of physicians that just want things done, and a lot of nurses that just want things done. And there's only one of you, there's only one of me. So I'm going to do it in a timely manner, of course, and I will get those, tasks done, but I'm not going to compromise patient safety and patient care for just doing something really fast.
Okay, I'm going to open the chat then. Just a moment. I didn't do it. Or one more first to see if there are any last questions before we close out.
Absolutely.
Also, students, and teachers, I'm gonna post a link for where you should sign in because you participated in this, which we're so excited to have the number of participants that we had. I don't know if we ever went over 200. We were hoping for 100, and I think we almost got to 200. Mm-hmm. I put a link in the chat. So please go there and sign in so we have a record of everybody who participated. Here comes some questions. Any final tips? That's the final question. Any final tips?
Any final tips? I would say don't doubt yourself. If this is something that interests you, I think that you should explore it. Maybe down the road it turns out it isn't it, but maybe you find a different avenue in healthcare. You had a starting point. And then also tying back to get that experience, whether it's volunteering, whether it's shadowing, whether it's getting a job somewhere. That is something also that I would say. But if this is something that you're really interested in, I think explore it. I don't see where you can lose with exploring something that you're interested in.
That's great. Nadia, I want to thank you very much for joining us today. We appreciate everything that you've been able to share with us. I know the students, I don't think I've ever had to follow a chat that moves so quickly because they have lots and lots of questions. Students and teachers, if you have any additional questions, you can send them into us and we'll get them to Nadia and get her response to it. Later on today, I'll have this posted on YouTube so you can watch the recording and share it with your other students. Or students, you can share it with your friends because I think it was an exceptional cybermentoring session that we've had. And don't forget that you can go to pathcentral.org and learn more information about this and other careers in the health science field. And I want to thank all the students and Nadia, especially you. Thank you very much for joining us today and have a good day.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Sure. Bye. Bye, Elizabeth.